Most pirates died broke and hungry in taverns, holding on to treasure that wasn't worth anything. The richest pirate in history never once buried a chest of gold. So if stolen treasure didn't make pirates wealthy, what did? And why does Hollywood keep lying to us about it? Pirates. When most people hear that word, their minds immediately jump to treasure chests overflowing with gold coins and jewels, bearded men in fancy coats counting their riches on tropical beaches. Makes sense, right? Hollywood has been feeding us this image for decades. But here's the thing about pirate wealth. It's mostly fantasy wrapped up in a really convincing package. Those legendary treasure maps leading to buried chests? Pure fiction, invented by writers who never stepped foot on a real pirate ship. The actual pirates sailing the Caribbean and Atlantic weren't exactly living like lottery winners. Most pirates started their careers dirt poor. They joined crews hoping to strike it rich fast, but the reality was brutal. Life at sea meant cramped quarters, spoiled food, and constant danger from storms, disease, and enemy ships. The average pirate career lasted about 2 years before ending in death, capture, or abandonment of the lifestyle altogether. Well, what about all those stories of massive treasure hoards? Here's where things get interesting and disappointing. The tales of pirates burying enormous fortunes come from exactly 3 places: confused historical records, creative storytellers, and our own wishful thinking. Real pirates rarely had enough wealth to justify burying anything significant. Think about it logically. Pirates needed to eat, drink, and maintain their ships. They couldn't exactly pop into the local bank to deposit their earnings. Most stolen goods had to be sold quickly before they spoiled or became too hot to handle. Gold coins were great, but pirates more often ended up with cargo like sugar, tobacco, or fabric. Valuable, sure, but not exactly the stuff of legend. The weird part is how these myths grew so powerful. Every retelling made the treasures bigger, the adventures more dramatic, and the pirates wealthier. By the time books like Treasure Island hit the shelves, the gap between reality and fiction had become a canyon. Then there's the mathematical problem nobody talks about. Even successful pirate crews had to split their earnings among dozens of people. After paying for ship repairs, supplies, and settling debts, individual shares often amounted to pocket change, not retirement funds. The truth is, most pirates lived paycheck to paycheck, or should we say raid to raid. They dreamed of striking it rich just like anyone else, but few ever achieved lasting wealth. So what did these seafaring outlaws actually manage to steal, and how much was it really worth? When you think about pirates stealing treasure, your mind probably jumps straight to chests overflowing with gold doubloons. But here's the thing, real pirates were way more practical than that. They grabbed whatever they could get their hands on, and gold wasn't always on the menu. Silver coins were actually more common than gold in most pirate raids. Spanish pieces of 8 became the bread and butter of pirate currency. These silver coins were everywhere in the Caribbean, making them easier targets than rare gold stashes. Pirates also snatched up jewels when they found them, but even these weren't the massive diamonds you see in movies. We're talking about simple rings, necklaces, and maybe some fancy buttons if they got lucky. Then there's the stuff that might surprise you. Pirates went crazy for silk and fine fabrics. Why? Because wealthy passengers on merchant ships wore expensive clothes, and silk was worth serious money in port towns. Spices were another gold mine, literally worth their weight in gold back then. A bag of cinnamon or nutmeg could feed a pirate crew for weeks after they sold it. But let's get real about what pirates actually found most of the time. Food and alcohol topped their wish lists during long voyages. Fresh meat, bread, and especially rum were treasures in their own right when you're stuck eating moldy hardtack for months. Pirates regularly raided ships just to restock their kitchens and bars. Makes sense, right? Weapons were always welcome loot too. Swords, pistols, and cannons could mean the difference between life and death in the next battle. Smart pirates knew that stealing better weapons was an investment in future raids. Here's where pirate life gets frustrating, though. Half the time, the cargo they risked their necks for turned out to be junk. Imagine attacking a heavily armed merchant vessel, losing crew members in the fight, only to discover the hold was full of cheap pottery or rotted food. Pirates dealt with disappointment way more often than Hollywood admits. The hauls were rarely massive anyway. After fighting through ship defenses and dealing with damaged goods from cannon fire, pirates often walked away with modest scores. A successful raid might net each crew member enough money for a few good meals and some new clothes, not enough to retire on a tropical island. And the weird part is, this practical approach to piracy actually made more sense than hunting for buried treasure. But when it came time to split up these everyday goods among dozens of hungry pirates, things got complicated fast. Pirates weren't just bloodthirsty criminals sailing around without rules. They actually had some of the most detailed contracts you've ever heard of. These weren't handshake deals either. Pirate crews created written agreements that would make modern lawyers jealous. Every successful pirate ship operated like a floating business. The captain got the biggest share, usually twice what regular crew members received. But here's the twist. Unlike Royal Navy ships where officers hoarded everything, pirate captains only got their fair cut. No exceptions. The quartermaster, who basically ran day-to-day operations, earned almost as much as the captain. Regular sailors, they still got their piece of the pie. But pirates took fairness to weird extremes. Lose an eye in battle, extra payment, lose a leg, even more money. The crew voted on these bonuses, and they were surprisingly generous. One pirate code promised 800 pieces of 8 for losing a right arm. That's serious money. Makes sense, right? If you're risking life and limb, you want guarantees. Then there's the voting system that would shock most people. Pirate crews voted on almost everything important. Where to sail next, whether to attack a ship, even whether to keep their current captain. Democracy on the high seas was real, and it happened centuries before most countries figured it out on land. The actual splitting process was brutally honest. When pirates captured a ship, everything valuable went into a common pile. No sneaking extra coins into your pocket. Getting caught meant serious punishment, sometimes death. The quartermaster divided shares publicly so everyone could see the process. Transparency wasn't just nice to have, it prevented mutinies. And the weird part is how small most individual shares actually were. After splitting loot among 20 or 30 crew members, plus setting aside money for ship repairs and supplies, regular pirates often walked away with pocket change. A successful raid might net each sailor enough money for a few weeks of drinking and eating well. That's it. Most pirates burned through their shares incredibly fast once they hit port. Why save money when you might die in the next battle? This spend-it-all mentality meant even successful pirates rarely built lasting wealth, but once they had money in hand, they faced another challenge entirely, actually spending it without getting arrested. Turns out, walking into a port town with stolen Spanish silver created its own set of problems. So pirates had their loot, but what good was a chest full of stolen silk if you couldn't buy rum with it? Turning treasure into actual spending money became the next big challenge. Most people think pirates just walked into any port and started throwing gold coins around like confetti. Wrong. The reality was way more complicated. Gold coins and silver pieces? Those were easy enough to spend anywhere. Nobody really questioned where you got your money back then, especially in rough port towns where asking too many questions could get you stabbed. But here's the thing. Most pirate loot wasn't shiny coins. It was cargo. Bolts of expensive fabric, barrels of spices, fancy weapons, maybe some jewelry if they got lucky. And that's where things got tricky. Try walking into a market with 20 stolen bolts of Chinese silk and see how fast people start asking questions. Pirates needed what we'd call fences today. People willing to buy hot goods without caring where they came from. These weren't your friendly neighborhood merchants either. We're talking about corrupt port officials, shady warehouse owners, and other criminals who knew exactly what they were buying. The catch? These buyers weren't running charities. They'd offer maybe half of what the goods were actually worth, sometimes even less. Pirates had no choice but to take the lowball offers because legitimate merchants wouldn't touch stolen cargo with a 10-foot pole. Makes sense, right? Getting caught dealing with pirates meant prison or worse. Then there were the truly lawless ports where anything went. Places like Nassau in the Bahamas became unofficial pirate marketplaces. But even there, competition was fierce. When dozens of pirate crews are all trying to sell similar loot, prices dropped fast. Supply and demand doesn't care if you risked your neck stealing those goods. The weirdest part? Sometimes pirates ended up with completely worthless junk. Imagine raiding a ship expecting gold and finding a cargo hold full of, say, live chickens or rotting fruit. Not exactly the treasure chest material of legends, but it happened more often than you'd think. Smart pirates learned to target specific types of ships carrying goods they knew they could sell easily. Spanish treasure galleons were the jackpot everyone hoped for, but merchant vessels with practical cargo were actually better bets for turning a reliable profit. But even when pirates successfully converted their loot into cold hard cash, keeping that money safe presented a whole new set of problems that most never saw coming. When pirates finally made it to shore with their loot, they couldn't exactly stroll into the nearest town flashing bags of stolen gold. That's a quick way to end up swinging from a rope. Instead, they had to be smart about where they went and how they acted. Pirates needed safe places to spend their money without getting arrested on the spot. Enter the pirate havens, wild, lawless ports where asking questions about someone's income was considered rude. Nassau in the Bahamas became the ultimate pirate party town. The place was basically run by pirates, for pirates. Tortuga off the coast of Haiti was another hot spot where stolen goods flowed like rum at a wedding. But even in these friendly ports, pirates couldn't go completely crazy with their spending. Flash too much cash around and suddenly everyone becomes your best friend or your worst enemy. Other pirates might decide your treasure looked better in their pockets. Makes sense, right? The smart pirates learned to blend in when they ventured beyond the safe havens. Some changed their names and tried to pass themselves off as respectable merchants. Others bought fake papers claiming they were legitimate traders. A few even tried to become actual law-abiding citizens, though old habits die hard when you've spent years taking what you want. Living a double life wasn't easy, though. Pirates had to watch their backs constantly, never knowing if someone might recognize them from a wanted poster. They couldn't trust anyone completely, not the locals, not other pirates, and definitely not the authorities who might be hunting them. Well, the paranoia was justified. Port towns were crawling with informants ready to turn in a known pirate for the bounty money. Even fellow pirates might betray each other if the reward was tempting enough. Honor among thieves? That's mostly Hollywood talking. Remote islands and hidden coves became popular hideouts for crews wanting to lay low. These places offered privacy, but came with their own problems: limited supplies, harsh weather, and the constant risk of being discovered by naval patrols. The weird part is that some pirates got so good at hiding their identities that historians still debate whether certain respectable colonial merchants were actually reformed pirates. They covered their tracks that well. But all this sneaking around and identity switching raises an interesting question about what happened to pirates who actually managed to survive long enough to think about quitting the business. The harsh truth about pirate retirement: most pirates never made it that far. While we love stories of swashbucklers sailing off into the sunset with chests full of gold, reality painted a much darker picture. Death came fast in the pirate world. Battle wounds, disease, drowning, or the hangman's noose usually ended a pirate's career long before they could think about retirement. The average pirate lasted maybe 2 to 3 years before meeting their maker. Not exactly the long, profitable career path they'd hoped for when they first hoisted the black flag. But what about the lucky few who survived? Well, here's where things get interesting. Even pirates who managed to accumulate decent wealth rarely stayed rich for long. Take Henry Morgan, one of the most successful pirates in history. He actually became a knight and governor of Jamaica after his pirating days. Pretty impressive retirement plan, right? Most other retired pirates weren't so fortunate. They'd blow their money faster than a cannonball leaves a cannon. Months or years of pent-up desire for luxury living would explode the moment they hit port. Fine clothes, expensive food, gambling, and plenty of rum drained their purses quicker than they'd filled them. Makes sense when you think about it. These weren't exactly guys known for their financial planning skills. Then there's the practical problem of actually retiring. Pirates couldn't just walk into any town and buy a nice house with a white picket fence. They were wanted criminals. Their faces were on wanted posters across the Caribbean. Starting fresh meant new identities, constant fear of recognition, and usually moving far from civilization. Some tried going legitimate by buying pardons from colonial governors. Others simply disappeared into remote settlements, hoping their past wouldn't catch up with them. A few lucky ones, like Bartholomew Roberts' quartermaster, managed to slip away with enough loot to live modestly in obscurity. The really successful pirates, you could count them on one hand. Captain Kidd supposedly buried treasure before his execution, though that's probably more legend than fact. Jean Lafitte vanished with his fortune, but nobody knows if he actually enjoyed it or died trying to protect it. Most pirates who dreamed of striking it rich and retiring in luxury discovered an uncomfortable truth. The pirate life was designed for quick thrills, not long-term wealth building. The real question isn't whether pirates retired rich, it's whether any of their legendary treasures actually existed at all. When people hear pirate treasure, most think of fictional maps marked with X's and chests buried on secret islands. But here's the thing. Actual pirate treasures found by modern explorers tell a completely different story. The Whydah shipwreck stands as one of the few genuine pirate treasure discoveries that actually lived up to the hype. This ship, captained by Black Sam Bellamy, sank off Cape Cod in 1717 with real gold, silver coins, and jewelry aboard. Divers have pulled up thousands of artifacts worth millions. Makes sense, right? One authentic find among countless myths. Then there's Captain Kidd, whose name became synonymous with buried treasure legends. The weird part is, Kidd really did bury some loot on Gardiner's Island near New York before his capture in 1699. But when authorities dug it up, they found a modest stash, nowhere near the fortune that stories claimed. Most of those wild Captain Kidd treasure tales, pure fiction that grew bigger with each telling. Let's not forget that when real pirate treasures turn up today, they're usually underwater shipwrecks, not mysterious island hideouts. Ships like the Queen Anne's Revenge, Blackbeard's flagship, have yielded cannons, anchors, and personal items. Valuable for museums and historians? Absolutely. Life-changing riches? Not really. Well, here's where treasure hunting gets disappointing. Most discoveries that make headlines turn out to be worth far less than the stories suggest. That chest of Spanish coins found on a beach, often worth thousands, not millions. Those gold pieces pulled from a wreck, frequently damaged by centuries of salt water. And the truth about pirates burying treasure? Historians agree it rarely happened. Why would desperate outlaws bury their only source of income instead of spending it immediately? Pirates needed money for food, weapons, and bribes to corrupt officials. Burying it made zero sense when you might die tomorrow in battle or from disease. Most pirates who accumulated any real wealth spent it fast in port towns on rum, women, and supplies for their next voyage. The idea of carefully mapping treasure locations and creating elaborate burial sites sounds romantic, but it wasn't practical for men living day to day. The biggest irony? Modern treasure hunters and marine archaeologists have probably recovered more valuable artifacts from pirate-era shipwrecks than most actual pirates ever possessed during their lifetimes. But understanding what pirates truly left behind reveals something far more interesting than gold. The real impact these sea rovers had on history itself. The pirate treasure myth refuses to die. Walk into any bookstore, scroll through streaming services, or check out the latest video game releases. Pirates with chests of gold are everywhere. Hollywood keeps pumping out movies where scruffy sailors discover islands packed with riches. Kids dress up as pirates for Halloween, complete with fake treasure maps. The fantasy sells because it's way more exciting than the truth. But here's what's really wild about pirate loot today. Marine archaeologists are pulling more wealth from sunken ships than most pirates ever saw in their lifetimes. The Whydah shipwreck has yielded millions in artifacts and coins. Modern treasure hunters use sonar, diving equipment, and GPS technology that would make Blackbeard jealous. They're finding Spanish galleons loaded with silver, merchant vessels packed with trade goods, and yes, even some pirate ships. The irony cuts deep, doesn't it? Today's explorers are getting rich off pirate dreams that never came true for the original pirates themselves. Meanwhile, those legendary buccaneers mostly lived hand to mouth, sharing small hauls and spending their cuts quickly in port towns. Most real pirates would laugh at our treasure hunt obsession. They knew the brutal math of their profession. Short careers, high mortality rates, and tiny payoffs were the norm. Captain Roberts might have captured over 400 ships, but his crew members weren't buying mansions afterward. They were lucky to afford decent boots and a hot meal. Then there's the survival factor we keep overlooking. Pirates weren't just chasing wealth, they were running from death. Starvation, disease, naval patrols, and rival crews threatened them constantly. Burying treasure made zero sense when you might need every coin to buy food, medicine, or safe passage tomorrow. The real legacy isn't about gold at all. Pirates created some of history's most democratic societies at sea. They voted on major decisions, shared resources fairly, and provided disability compensation for injured crew members. These outcasts built better social systems than most legitimate governments of their time. Smart pirates used cunning over brute force, negotiated when possible, and understood that reputation could be more valuable than any chest of coins. They were businessmen operating outside the law, not the romantic treasure collectors we imagine. But the treasure hunt continues because the dream feels possible. Every metal detector enthusiast believes they might find that one buried chest. Every scuba diver hopes to spot something glinting in the sand.